Done. Easy. Let's go, baby. Okay. All right. You win. You guys win. Y'all win. Yo guys, what is up? Max doing our first Descendant video, and today we are going over my updated guide for Ultimate Valby. Now, if you are looking for a guide for normal Valby, I have already posted that. I'll have a link in the description and a pinned comment where you can check out kind of the normal Valby setup. I will also be going over a budget setup for Ultimate Valby, but she got some new Transcendent mods, and she's pretty freaking awesome. So today we're going to be going over everything you need to know about building her. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let's get right into it. Real quick, these are the differences between Alt Valby and normal Valby in terms of like their base stats. So Ultimate Valby is in blue. She's got slightly more max shield, which isn't super relevant. Here you can see the lineup between the two. Ultimate Valby also has slightly more base HP, a little bit more shield, a little bit more defense, and just about the same shield recovery out of combat and same max MP. So if you're picking up Ultimate Valby, you're getting slightly better base stats, but the real cool reason about picking up Ultimate Valby is the access to the Ultimate exclusive Transcendent modules, which we'll talk about now. So Valby has access to a bunch of Transcendent modules. The new ones are Spiral Tidal Wave and Hydro Pressure Bomb. I unfortunately was not able to get Spiral Tidal Wave for this video, so I do apologize about that. I've heard it's really good for grouping up the orbs for Gluttony and doing that fight. I've heard pretty mediocre things about it for like other content, so I don't think it's too bad that we don't have it for the video, but Hydro Pressure Bomb is actually pretty cool, and we do have a setup for that build today, so when we talk about that, we'll get into it. However, Valby's best Transcendent module, in my opinion, which is not Ultimate exclusive, meaning you can use it on either, is Supply Moisture. This increases your skill critical hit rate, skill duration, and fire attribute or firearm attribute trigger rate, and the reduction of your MP does not apply, which is Valby's normal passive. So basically, you're going to be costing more mana on your skills, but your skills are going to be doing more damage, and your guns are going to be doing more damage. Next up, we get to talk about reactors for Valby. I unfortunately do not have a legendary reactor for this video, so note that I'm missing on about 20% of my damage. However, I did get a pretty crazy looking reactor. So I've got skill critical hit damage and non-attribute skill boost ratio. This is pretty perfect for me. In terms of building Valby, I prefer her Supply Moisture mod. So going for skill crit chance and damage is always going to be good. Getting range on her is nice. Cooldown and duration are both also good. And extra damage for a boost ratio is all good things. But I definitely think that you're really trying to find skill crit damage on her reactor as a must-have if you want to use the Supply Moisture effectively. The other thing that you're going to be looking for is Dimension. Now, depending on the build that you want to go on Valby, you're going to look for different things. You're always looking for non-attribute. You can go for non-attribute Dimension. If you are going to use Hydrobomb, which we'll talk about in a second, it does change your 2 to Fusion, and then you're going to be scaling around Fusion. But for most of the time, you're going to be looking for Dimension damage. So to start us out, we've got a very budget setup, which we'll talk about first. On the budget setup, we're just looking for quality of life and damage. Skill extension for more duration of our dots is fantastic. Skill expansion for more range on our abilities is also great. We're also going to be using both base power and modifier on her. The big thing is modifier is only really necessary if you're using skills that have low modifier. So for example, dot damage is usually low modifier. So adding more modifier is a massive increase to that. For example, if we look at my like 1, the actual dot damage of it on the puddle is only 31. So adding 80 or 62 flat to that is like more than doubling its damage, which is huge. And then we're also going to be using increased HP and MP conversion. This setup gives us basically 100% uptime on her cleanup ability, so you can constantly be moving around, and it gives us a fair bit of damage on all of her abilities. This is a low investment build, so we don't have Supply Moisture, we don't have crit, and you're able to spam your abilities. Next up, we've got our like expensive or high investment Ultimate Valby build. On this, we're going to be adding Supply Moisture, which is going to give us base crit. So for example, right now, if we check our info, I've only got a 10% crit hit chance. I'm going to add, when I'm on my water, a 20% base to that 10%, and then I'm going to get my percentage increases on top of that. So now while I'm standing in water, I'm now at 53% crit hit chance with a 3 times crit multiplier. And you'll note that I've left an open slot here on this build. I haven't fully catalyzed. I need to catalyze my my sub module and this slot, but I wanted to talk about the options that you can go with this, because one thing that you can do with Valby is you could go for example, another crit mod here to really ramp up her damage even more. Now, for example, with Frontlines, we're at 4 times crit damage with a 60% crit chance for our dots, which is kind of disgusting. But there's also some other quality of life options that you could go for. So kind of with this setup, you're either choosing for more damage or more quality of life or more tankiness. So on the mobbing setup, right now, the big things that we're adding from the budget setup are we're going to be adding Decimator. Decimator, whenever we kill enemies with a debuff, we're going to be stacking up Modifier. Modifier is great for dots, and every one of Valby's abilities applies the Laundry debuff. This gives her a ton of extra damage for mobbing, which is really nice. We're also going to be adding crit mods because now we're using Supply Moisture, so we can scale that damage more. And we've got our still kind of our core damage from non-attribute and dimension. The reason we're scaling dimension is because Valby's 2 and her 3 are both dimension, and her 3 is kind of her highest base modifier that you can kind of drag all around on everything. So that is the core setup. For additional mods, you have a few options. If you want more mana, you can go an MP collector in this slot. If you want more crit damage, I would go for Frontlines, so you get a little bit more crit hit damage and more crit hit rate. You could also go for a defense mod. Something like Spear and Shield is what I would recommend if you're feeling squishy. I personally don't feel like I need a defense mod on Valby. We've run a bunch of dungeons on her. The big thing is that her 3 gives her 50% DR. So if there's ever a time where you feel like you've got damage incoming or you're dealing with a lot of ads, you can just go into this mode and you're going to be taking hardly any damage. But yeah, showing on screen right now should be a list of the recommended mods in kind of the order that I would go in if you want to add one more slot to this setup. Next up, we've got the Hydrobomb mod. Now, I put out a build video with an Ajax that would basically just jump around all the time. This is basically that, but for Valby. So the way this mod works is it gets more damage the more enemies you have around it. So for example, we've got a base of 745 damage modifier, but we get a damage increase per entity. So every time that we're jumping in here, we're going to be getting more damage per enemy, and those enemies need to be afflicted by Laundry. It says jumps forward and deals damage upon landing. Damage increases proportional to the number of enemies afflicted with Laundry. So it's not just the amount of enemies that you're landing on, it's the amount of enemies in your radius that are affected by Laundry. So the two things that we really want to add to this build is cooldown. So we're going to add a MP conversion. This adds more cooldown so we can spam more abilities. We're going to make sure that we're getting MP collectors so we have that extra spam. We want way more range, so we're going to go maximize range and skill expansion so that we can have our Laundry effect hitting more enemies. For this build, we're going to be using the 1 as, instead of a way to damage, a way to apply our debuffs and our Laundry in a large area so that our 2 comes and smacks down really hard. Then we're going to add a little bit of extra base damage with non-attribute to get more base power. Remember, this is a high modifier thing, so things that increase modifier aren't going to do as much as it for it. That's why we don't have any modifier. We're just all going for base power. Once again, you could add a little bit more damage here in this slot if you wanted to, or like a defense mod, but the big thing is just coming down and smacking with this. So I'll show you what that looks like now. So we're going to do it first with no Laundry debuff. So that's a 382k hit, and I'll show you the damage once like it actually changes. Once again, I don't have a legendary reactor on. Let's real quick just put on the Slayer set for some big damage. So now we put down our 1, make sure everything's afflicted with Laundry, come down here, and there is a 1 million hit with Valby on a 4-second cooldown, by the way. So this is a really fun build. If you want to play this, you could optimize the build a little bit differently. I personally prefer Supply Moisture, so I've got these 2 crit modifiers here, which obviously without Supply Moisture, Valby's crit chance is a measly 5%, so you really can't do anything with crit. It's a little hard to optimize for both, but you get to spam a 1 million damage hit every 4 seconds. It's pretty nice, and this build is set up so that you can constantly have the biggest AoE on your Laundry debuff, so that you can have everything debuffed and just come down and constantly be smacking things with your 2. For our bossing setup, we're basically making gun Valby. You can absolutely bring in like the mobbing build and use your dots and crits to kill things. I kind of wanted to set it up where Valby was just really tanky and could not only debuff for your entire team, but also buff up her gun damage a whole ton. So we've got supply moisture to give us that crit rate on our weapons. We've got shot focus to give us more damage. And we're going to be adding a bunch of tankiness and quality of life. Things like HP Collector and Stim Accelerant, which gives our Valby 15,000 HP and 22,000 defense with lots of cooldown and lots of range and duration so that our abilities stay up longer and our debuffs stay up longer. And what this setup is focused on is using high damage weapons that have good crit rates on them. So once again, I'm trying to be better at like slowing down and focusing. So this is the build for bossing. 15,000 HP, 22,000 defense, and high crit rate weapons work really well with her, specifically if you're pairing lightning damage on your weapons. But for example, my Enduring Legacy, no lightning damage, 30% crit hit rate. I put down my water. Once we're on our water, now that 30% crit rate is 61, so we've doubled our crit rate on this thing, which is disgusting. Our Nazastras is at 87% crit hit rate, and the Gregs is at 54% crit hit rate. Those are the bossing weapons that I like on her. For mobbing, just might as well talk about it. I think the two best mobbing weapons for Valby are the Thunder Cage and the Python. The Python has the unique ability Prey, which will debuff for her dots, making her dots deal more damage, and the Thunder Cage does lightning damage on its explosion, which Valby also debuffs for, and the Thunder Cage is one of the best mobbing weapons in the game. I have build guides for both of these things. I'm using the exact same mods for my build guides on them, but that is kind of her bossing setup and some of the cool weapons that I like to use. Basically, you're trying to bring big crit weapons that already have good crit chance and already have good crit damage, and Valby will only make those weapons better. For our components, I'm usually using like 2-piece Annihilation for the extra duration that it provides, which is really nice for Valby. Annihilation sets just roll really well as well, so we can get very tanky. We got like 15,000 HP and 23,000 defense, so very comfortable feeling Valby. If you're wanting to do some extra bossing with her, because we're building her around being a gun Descendant, you can put on, I don't have like great pieces of it, but you can put on like, for example, the Decimator set to give you even more base crit rate. There is another set that you can wear if you wanted to like min-max and wear both. If we come over here and then look at our rarities, so both the Veteran set rolls 5% crit rate and the Decimator set rolls 5% crit rate, and these work together. So you can wear 2-piece Decimator, 2-piece Veteran for extra crit rate on top of already having a ton of crit on your weapons with supply moisture, which is kind of gross. I only currently have a 2-piece set for extra crit chance, but really cool setup if you want to just use Valby as a gun Descendant for bossing. Guys, that's gonna do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. I do plan on getting an updated Glay build out, and I also will try to have a Luna build out for you guys. I'm trying to get her module that turns her like 2 ability into a DPS ability. I just have not been able to get it, so that's why I haven't made a Luna guide quite yet, but I really want to get that so I can make like a honest first impressions of her, because I don't think it's fair until I get that DPS module to kind of like really give my take on her. But yeah, guys, that is it for the video. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.